Jeannie Kerr and Jeff Conwell. Also joining us this evening is our student representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody. I would also like to introduce our staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Academic Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Ms. Andy Stubbs, and Executive to the Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal. We are delighted that you're here this evening in person or viewing on Channel 27 or our new YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.stHelenaunified.org. In connection with items A, B, C, and D on the closed session, the board received information and provided staff with direction. In connection with closed session item E, the board considered the administration's recommendation to expel one student. The expulsion includes a stipulated suspension that allows the student to enroll in another school outside the school district. If the student complies with the provisions of the expulsion and rehabilitation plan, the student may receive consideration to re-enroll in February 2021. I will now accept a motion to expel student number 6855 as specified in the stipulation.
I will make that motion to expel that student.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I would like to direct everyone to the public comments at board meetings on the screen. At this time, members of the public are entitled to speak on matters not on the agenda. You are requested to state your name and address and keep your comments to a concise, limited to 3 minutes. I will not read the rest because I'm going to now open the meeting to public comment.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Regina Penna. I hope you don't mind if I use my notes. My name is Regina Penna. I'm the program coordinator for the Up Valley Partnership for Youth. We're a program of Up Valley Family Centers. We're a federally funded drug-free communities program. We're a community coalition that's 4 years old. We're comprised of many different partners in our organization. They're parents, social service organizations, addiction specialists, schools are represented, health departments, police departments. Anyway, it's a community coalition that's trying to look at how do we prevent youth use of substances. The coalition has identified alcohol, marijuana, and other intoxicating substances as our priority of focus. When the coalition started 4 years ago, there was one substance that I don't think was on anybody's agenda at that point, and it has become glaringly apparent in the last few years, not just here in St. Helena, but across the country, and that's vaping. Between 2013 and 2018, St. Helena ninth graders have experienced a 20% increase in the amount of vaping that they were doing. The first Surgeon General's report on tobacco-related illnesses was published in 1964. That was 56 years ago. Since then, we have had volumes of data and research on the harmful effects of tobacco use. Tobacco is the only product, when used as directed, kills. As a country, we've made tremendous strides in moving towards finally having a tobacco-free generation. We've studied the impact of combustible cigarettes and chewing tobacco, spit tobacco, for over 60 years. These electronic products are not even 10 years old. We don't know a lot, but what we're starting to discover is very alarming. The CDC is now tracking weekly the number of people who are being hospitalized with an illness called E-Valley. It's electronic vapor-related lung infection. excuse me, last week we topped 60 people who have passed from the use of electronic products, and there are almost 2,700 who are hospitalized from this. With youth who use tobacco electronic products being 4 times more likely to cross over and start using combustible cigarettes, in many ways we're starting to move backwards. The coalition has a few things that we would like to consider and actually offer our support and help in doing within the community. We want to look at how do we monitor our students during the day when they're off campus, but they're still under the school's jurisdiction because they're using the products not just in campus but off campus as well. 2, we would like to work with the schools and with the school board on how do we educate our teachers and staff about electronic products, and what do we do with students who are currently using them. We want to look at having a place where students who are using them, who want to stop, where they can dispose of them without consequence. We would like to try and figure out a good referral system for getting students into cessation and support programs, and also intensive education for those who were in elementary school, like 4th through 6th grades. This came from students and parents, information from students and parents that education on nicotine products needs to be more intensive in those younger ages because that's when they're starting to use. If we're seeing a 20% increase in 9th graders who are using, we need to get prevention out to them beforehand. I just wanted to say, I'll leave you my cards here. We're here to assist in any way that you see fit. There are some students here from RLS who actually, they have prompted a lot of activity in our community around electronic products. I want to say they're very eloquent. They're also very correct in everything that they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll just, you can state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Eva Williams. My address is 1746 Madrona Avenue, right here in St. Helena, 94574. Okay, so I am an 8th grader at RLS and a member of Safe Students Against Flavored E-Cigarettes. I'm sure most of you all have heard this, but the vaping issue in America is widespread and posing to be a real problem. But more importantly, we have a problem right here in St. Helena, right here in this district. Though vaping is illegal for anyone under 21, that doesn't stop the youth from getting a hold of e-cigarettes. In fact, vaping and dabbing, which is vaping THC, is incredibly common among St. Helena schools. I see it going on with my own eyes. The youth here viewed vaping and dabbing as cool, which therefore makes it normal to own a vape, normal to dab out in the open, normal to carry a jewel in your pocket. Kids really could care less about what ingredients are in vape pens. All the information they're giving us through posters, presentations, etc. are going in one ear and out the other. Teenagers are not the best at making informed decisions. They want to do what's cool. They want to do what's of the moment. They want to do what's convenient, and oftentimes they do all of the above without the realization of how it impacts their own health and well-being. Does St. Helena and its schools want to contribute to a serious potential health crisis for the youth? If we make it easy for kids to access vapes in our town by selling them, we remove one of the possible barriers that might keep someone from starting a habit of vaping. We have to find an effective solution. Kids can and will get vapes from multiple sources, and what we have to ask ourselves is, do we want St. Helena and its schools to be a place where kids can access something that is targeted at them, is addictive, and is extremely harmful to their health? And as we pointed out before, those health consequences are both immediate and long-lasting. I think policing it is ineffective, and whatever economic benefits there are to selling vapes, it does not outweigh the health of our youth. Our school district and our city have an opportunity to set an example. This is our chance to show our kids what our priorities really are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Name and address, right? Hi, my name is Beatrice Nagnostakis, and I live in 1953 Vineyard Avenue, 94574. Like Eva and Reese, I am another representative from SAFE, and I feel like we also, besides targeting kids, we also need to inform teachers to be more aware of the topic of vaping. Giving presentation, what the staff at our school doesn't really understand, I feel like, is that the students bring the vapes with them in their backpacks in extra bags, and no one seems to notice. They fall out of their pockets and slide across the ground, but very rare I see a student get in trouble for having one because no one sees them. I'm not saying that we should, like Eva said, I'm not saying that we should police my peers, but I feel like we should make it so that everyone's more aware, and so that teachers know how to interact with the students when put in a situation like this. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. Hello, my name is Reese Darlene. I'm at 471 Cornish Lane in Angwin, 94508. Hello, my name is Reese Darlene, and I am the creator of and representative from SAFE, Students Against Flavored E-Cigarettes. And before I begin, I want to address my gratitude to you guys for the steps you've already taken, such as I believe there are some vape detectors in the bathrooms, and the police officers that have been at our schools. And I have one more idea or so that I would like to share with you as well, and I want to give you a little student's perspective. So first of all, I have an idea on how we can help with the issue of vaping, more than you already have, that is. My idea is a basic buyback style of a system that our school could possibly run. We could have student representatives throughout the school that could get the vapes from anybody who wanted to get them off of their hands without getting in trouble. Because trust me, there's a lot of kids, I've heard a lot of times, I don't know what to do with my vape. I don't want it anymore. I want to get off of this path, but I don't know how. And it's either it's too expensive, I don't want to waste this money, or I don't know, maybe there's some other kid out there who wants it. But they shouldn't be doing that. They should have an obvious outlet where they can just say, here, I know this is a safe way to get it without getting in trouble. So we could have student representatives such as ourselves that could be about campus, and we could take it and just anonymously give it to the office and won't say who it is, where the office could then give it to the authorities. Another idea that I had to help this, because in my opinion, we should start being proactive instead of reactive, because these teens are addicted at some points, and it's hard to just say, okay, here are the statistics, now stop. So we should start getting at younger ages. All of these presentations that we've been getting at our school, I think we should bring them down a little bit and maybe bring them to the elementary, where they can realize before they even have the thought in their head that they shouldn't if they're ever given the opportunity. I took a few quotes from some friends of mine that I think really caught my attention. One of them is, vaping, it's one of those things where the bad sides outweigh the good things or the feeling you could ever get from doing it. Another one is, honestly, teenagers who vape around friends are selfish. They're hurting their friends just so that they can have a satisfaction. And I agree with these both. And so these are my ideas for how, the sake of our community, we can stop vaping among kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? I just want to remind everyone in our audience that the board is not able to respond to public comment for unagendized items, but we want to thank everyone for taking the time to speak to us today.
President Haug, if I may inform and remind the board that our wellness committee has two major goals this year. It's mental health, and it's also reducing vaping. So under the leadership of Andy Stubbs and Angela Baxter, they have been working diligently in reducing vaping, and I know that the ideas that were shared tonight will be incorporated and discussed as potential next steps.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
So next we have the the introduction of our new school resource officer, Miss Melissa Brown, and Sergeant Tharp will be introducing her. Sergeant Tharp, please.
Good evening, school board members and district officials. I just want to say that's awesome. Civic involvement is huge, and our democracy depends on it, and that's fantastic. This is Officer Brown. Officer Brown grew up in New Jersey, where she graduated high school. She has a bachelor's degree in biology. She ended up in California through AmeriCorps, over in Santa Rosa, where she did work with at-risk youth, gang enforcement, and literacy programs. She came to the St. Helena Police Department about 3 years ago, during which time she has had enhanced training in drug and alcohol awareness, symptom recognition, and enforcement. Officer Brown has worked numerous felony and misdemeanor investigations and is extremely thorough in her work. Officer Brown has been our community liaison, our VIP coordinator, which is volunteers in policing, for the last year, and has developed an excellent relationship with the community. Officer Brown recently has attended school resource officer training in Corona, California. She began working in the schools February 3rd of 2020, and she's being funded on a grant from DOJ for tobacco with an emphasis on vaping. So, Melissa Brown.
Thank you.
Officer Brown. Officer Brown, would you like to say a few words to the board?
Sure. Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I've really been enjoying myself, primarily at the high school and middle school, and I've had a few really great visits at the elementary school and the primary school. I was reading to some kindergartners this morning, and it's a different experience, and they're very touchy-feely, but I welcomed it, and I had a great time. So I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity.
And next, I would like to call on the student board representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody, for his report.
Righty. Good evening, everyone. I know she stepped out, but on behalf of all of the students, I'd like to welcome Officer Brown. I hope she can hear me from outside. Let's get right into things. As introduced, my name is Joe Brody. I am the student board representative, and this is my representative report for the month of February. And in the normal form of my reports, I'll be starting at the high school and working my way down the schools, which means we will be starting right here at St. Helena High School, where, let me tell you, it never seems to stop. Students are always working to do their best. We are always achieving something new and something great. One really interesting point that I'd like to point out is we recently had our day of detachment, which was January 21st, which was the first day of the second semester. Students were asked to leave all of their technological devices at home or keep them stored for the entire school day. Teachers were asked to incorporate lessons that did not use technology. And it was all about just, why do we use technology? How do we use technology? Examining our relationship with technology. So at the beginning of the school day, students were asked to stow their devices if they didn't have them. That was great. And they got a little glimpse of a survey that they would be taking at the end of the day, just really going back to, how do I feel when I'm not using technology? How do I feel when I am using technology? What do I use my technology for? What do I not use it for? So really focusing on the relationship that students and teachers and schools have with technology. Altogether, very positive results. Some that I just have here were much more increased communication. People were actually talking to each other for longer periods of time, but also just very different communication. Students today are extremely technologically literate, but they are also able to hold a conversation, and it was nice to see that nice duality in students, because I think sometimes that gets overlooked. Again, as I said, never really stops at the high school, so I just have a few quick points. We now have 5 future-ready classrooms here on campus. They work to break up the monotony of 7 classes a day. So English teachers were able to opt in. We have 4 English teachers with future-ready classrooms, and then also room 303, which is the study skills room on campus. I have the pleasure of being in one of those classrooms during second period, and let me tell you, they are fun, they are exciting. Again, working about incorporating technology into the school day, different methods of learning, and really getting students engaged with what they're learning. Moving right on down, St. Helena High School has a recently formed dress code committee looking at reevaluating our dress code, making it more equitable for all students. The leaders of the dress code committee recently met with the student congress at the high school to talk about it. Really great ideas were brought, and the dress code committee will come back to student congress with a revised potential dress code. Again, going down, schedule balancing. As the board knows, the semesters, the first and second semester at the high school were a little off balance. So the first semester ended after spring break. That is being reevaluated. I do not have any updates as of right now, but I'm sure Mr. Cinto will have something very exciting for you at some point in time. And then ASB is also working on what I have dubbed the Clean Campus Project. We are reevaluating where all of our trash and recycling bins are located on campus. And so we are sending students out during the school day saying, where are our trash cans and where is trash? So really looking at maximizing the potential of those placement, making sure that we have an incredibly clean campus. Moving, I think I pointed this way. There we go. Moving to the RLS, really exciting stuff. Definitely didn't have this when I was there, but that's fine. Recently, 7th graders in Mr. Sasser's history class had a Heian Day, which is is the name of the period giving to the end of classical Japanese history. So they had a full day dedicated to wrapping up, culminating their Japanese history project. So they were able to make some delicious sushi, look at Japanese architecture and Japanese script. And then also the Health and Wellness Fair was earlier this month, kind of incorporating some of the things that were mentioned during public comment, just about the adverse effects of substance abuse while also just focusing on healthy living. Though there was a little change in the Health and Wellness Fair this year, it was much more interactive for students. So instead of just sit, listen to a presentation, sit, listen to a presentation, much more interactive. I've been told there was a Jeopardy game. So it was all really just about knowledge retention. Ooh, excuse me, just getting really excited. Just really about knowledge retention. What are students learning? What do students know? What do students still need to be reminded of? Moving to the elementary school, lots of information here. Recently, student council members, some of the text got messed up there, but I'll just speak it off the slide. Student council members are working with Mrs. Baxter, who's the director of food services, to develop an international food week that will incorporate a multicultural menu for all students to enjoy. And then 5th graders, kind of going on with that food theme, 5th graders have been harvesting the broccoli and cauliflower from the winter gardens to make some nice, delicious soups. Yum. And then the 3rd grade class recently took a trip to the Bill Grist Mill in order to learn more details related to their study of local pioneer history, which is always exciting. I remember pioneer days at the elementary school. And then moving on down to our littles at the primary school, I was able to meet with some students in Mrs. Mead's 1st grade class. I met with 3. I met with Gabe, Taylor, and Layla, and they gave me a, let me tell you, very thorough rundown of all of the going-ons in 1st grade. If I could direct your attention to whichever screen you're currently looking at, that was the poster I was greeted with upon entering Mrs. Mead's classroom. And I really have to say, those 1st graders know their stuff. My position here felt a little threatened by how well their presentation was, but they gave me a really general rundown of the 4 main groups, areas of study. So reading, writing, and science. Math, what they called their specials, which is PE, learning to type in the computer lab, and then they're putting on a music show as well. And then also incorporating, yay, drama. Incorporating drama into learning, so acting, imagination, using your body, using your voice, and then also incorporating some how do we recognize our emotions, not only through ourselves, but also in drama. On that note, Newsies here at St. Helena High School opens the first weekend in March. Anybody watching at home, buy your tickets now at sthelena.com. Really quickly before I end my presentation and go to the questions, I was able to recently meet with students on February 11th in regards to the potential Pride Month initiative and resolution that would hopefully be brought to the board. From that, I was able to bring that to the Equity, Culture, and Climate Subcommittee, opened a very beautiful dialogue, and I hope to be able to bring a potential resolution to that committee when they meet again in April, I believe. On that note, I know I had to go very quickly, and the band is here. Are there any quick questions?
I don't have any questions.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeannie.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for everything. This is great. And what character are you in?
So my character's name is Specs. The Newsies centers around the 1989 Newsboys strike in New York City. So I play one of the newsboys.
Lovely.
And
I can't wait.
Super excited. See, I'm telling you, they always put them.
So, in the interest of the students who are performing for us tonight, I would like to ask for a motion to move item 7D to before item 7C. So, moving item 7D to the current time slot. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So for the next topic, we have presentation 7D, the RLS band, and I would like to call Miss Alicia Fulmer.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having us and my giant little giant of kids behind me. We're going to be playing 3 little pieces for you today. First is going to be the 6th graders. There's 9 of us in 6th grade band currently. We're missing one tonight. And then there's currently 33 in the 7th and 8th grade band still at RLS. Wow. So this is the 6th grade band playing Boot Scoot and Barn Dance.
Done?
we've been waiting out there a little bit. They're going to do a concert B flat major scale for you, and then we're going to get into our two little pieces for you. Go ahead. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3,
1.
Ms. Fulmer. Ms. Fulmer. Ms. Fulmer, could you please have the students come up and shake the board members' hands? They can carry their instrument and go back and get their...
Very good. Sound good. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here on the day before Valentine's Day and a holiday. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Having great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Now I know why you got off on the wrong bus.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I want to thank everyone for performing, students. It was really fantastic. So now we're moving on to item 7C. That would be the video presentation from the ASB officers of the St. Helena High School. Erica? Thank you.
Mr. Joe Browdy is going to introduce this.
Yes, so this is just a very quick introductory video of the students who are on this year's 2019-2020 ASB team. Just
And I'm pleased to introduce to you the 2019-2020 St. Helena High School Associate Student Body. Hi, I'm Johnny. I'm the ASB president this year, and I am on the basketball team as well as the baseball team. This year in leadership, we are focusing on 4 seasons: Start, Spirit, Service, and Shine.
Hi, my name is Nicole Chia. I am ASB Vice President and I play volleyball and swim. This season for service, we are focusing on 20 projects for the year 2020. And by March, we would like to complete 20 service projects as a leadership class. And currently we are forming the list.
Hi, my name is Holden Smith. I am the ASB treasurer. I'm involved in cross country and swim at the high school. And this year, I've worked to help digitize the ASB accounting and the budget so that we know exactly what's happening and moving it off of paper and onto the computer so we can get statistics and things we need readily from that. So that's what I've done this year.
Hi, I'm Avery Roberts. I'm the ASB secretary this year, and with that, I take notes at all of our meetings and take minutes. I'm also involved in Interact Club and French Club at the high school.
Hi, my name is Joe Brody. I am currently serving as the ASB student representative to the Board of Trustees. I am the only 11th grader on this predominantly 12th grade ASB team. On campus, I'm really involved in FFA and on the swim team. As part of my ASB duties, I seek to be the voice of the students on the Board of Trustees, advising the board as best I can in all student matters and working with students to bring initiatives that they want to see district-wide to the board.
Hello again. As an ASB team, we would just like to thank the governing board for their continued support in student matters at St. Helena High School.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? No. Thank you for that cameo, Chris Heller. So, moving on to communications, item 8A, board member reports. I'd like to call on Jeff Conwell, RLS.
Hello, everyone. I had the opportunity to go to the RLS on Tuesday, February 11th for periods 6 and 7 and got to see basically the extracurricular rotation program, as many parents previously knew it, kind of the world wheel, and kind of see it in action. The complete thunder was, and I appreciate this, Mary Lou, and I appreciate everybody who bringing the band in here to basically give you an example of what I saw, because the turnaround in the band, and I'm just starting, is just fantastic. And watching the new teacher and what she did and the way she was able to captivate and talk and kind of get everybody on key. Everybody in that room, and that room is packed, is listening to her and focusing, and she has a whole toolbox of tricks to basically make them much better band students. And I had heard that if you just want to be in the band, even if you can't read music, anything like that, she is open at any time to come in. And band is a year-long commitment. So really exciting program over there. I know that for many years, art was always the kingpin over there, and it's very exciting to see that there's a little competition for which is the highest. The other great thing to see was we're late afternoon, we're on a Tuesday, and we're going into makerspace, we're going into tech, we're going into these video, and it's fascinating. The kids are deep into it. I mean, very excited. Some of them were running up saying, okay, you've got to see the way my program works on this. And they would run over and they would get their whole machine to work, and this is what they're trying to do. So it very, very exciting to see the makerspace, our STEM kind of initiative. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 2 or 3 years when we get our B-STEAM kids up there that already have that step. And so very, very positive. Ms. Crincox, thank you very much for leading us. It was a delightful afternoon. The superintendent also joined us as well. And it was neat to see the campus and watch the middle school. And once again, as always, I'm just so pleased and surprised. And at this point, I kind of get it that our kids are really good. And they're great kids, and they're trying their best, and they're willing to learn, and the teachers are honing their craft, and they are creating excitement in the classroom. So to me, it was a great afternoon and fantastic job at the RLS Grant. Thank you.
Any comment? Public comment? I'm sorry, I should be asking this. Any board members comment? Thank you. Next, we have superintendent subcommittee reports. And first, for the Curriculum, Technology, and Innovation Committee, that was Jeannie and Jeff who would like to report out on that.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. No.
Would you like to report out?
I'd be delighted.
Mary Lou, thank you.
The members of the committee heard about the current pilots that are occurring within the district that, as board members, you are aware of those, and the next steps with regards to pilot and bringing forward for public comment and then ultimately adoption. We also heard from Mr. Cinto with regards to mathematics at the high school and the processes that we've gone through in the last number of years to support our students and move towards that growth mindset as opposed to a non-growth mindset. The Curriculum, Technology, Innovation Committee members have been invited to visit the middle school and see some of what Trustee Conwell observed this week in the coding and computer classes. And so we're real excited to bring them into that visitation. I believe it's on the 21st of February. And it's a great committee. It's very active, lots of involvement.
Thank you. The calendar committee would be Jeff and Julio.
Okay. And yes, we do actually meet for this one. So that was actually my first meeting on this one. So I was kind of excited to see what that was all about. So we met on January 15th. The purpose of this meeting was specifically to look at the calendar for the next year. As potential days that may be made up as far as school days, and that just has to do as far as the last 3 years with the fires, the flooding, and the power shutoffs. And so students and staff have obviously missed more days than normal, so this is kind of just in place to see if we can recover some of those days in the later part of the year. And pretty much with this, I mean, it was Chris and the teachers and some principals were there, and basically they were, discussing what would be best for the students and the staff. So they were really just kind of looking at the options as far as some of those potential dates, and they're going to continue to work on that, and then hopefully have something finalized for once it's ready. So.
If I could just add that the proposal for the calendar should be coming in March for approval.
Thank you. And next, the Equity, Culture, and Climate Committee, Lisa and Julio.
Always just tag on as well. Yes, we just met on Tuesday, and as Mr. Brody alluded to as well, it was a great conversation that included a few things. We talked about that Mr. Sinter's alma mater is not really alma mater, your former, okay. Oh, coming on March 12th, perhaps? Okay, working in progress. Then we also discussed the Pride resolution. Joe talked about dress code and things like that. So that's all in the works. Dr. Wilson and Joe will work together to start to draft a resolution. Joe is going to meet with Student Voice one more time, I believe, as he mentioned. Then we talked about a September community activity that's been kind of bubbling around on the agenda for a little bit. And out of that discussion came maybe the realization that rather than doing reinventing a community event, that we maybe kick up a notch an existing event. Calistoga, in conjunction with the Up Valley Centers, does quite a big production in their community. But we realize that might be really reinventing the wheel and taking on more than we can do when we already have things like the Harvest Festival that we could maybe bump up. Or our registration fair, which was well received last time, perhaps, offering a little bit more there and building that as a community activity and seeing more families engage in that and seeing what other kind of support services are available to our families in the community that could come to an event like that. So more to come on that. Julio, anything you want to add into that?
I think you covered everything. I just did want to highlight Joe. He spoke about the Pride resolution and the work that he's doing. And just aside from the work that he's obviously been doing, he's pretty impressive as far as what he's done so far. But I just wanted to say that I was really impressed just how he carries himself in the room full of adults. He's very well spoken and passionate. And so, Mr. Cinto, air high five since we selected him. Way to go, Joe.
And next, we have the LCAP Steering Committee. That was Jeannie and myself. Jeannie, would you like to report out on that?
I'm happy to start and then just add anything that you wish to add. As far as our students, I actually want to give a high five to our 3 young girls who were part of the student engagement discussion that we had at our LCAP meeting on January 23rd. And there were 12 students at RLS that were invited, and there were 3 8th grade girls that were able to attend, and they did a fabulous job answering 5 different questions with a room full of, I would say, 20 adults or so in there. I was so enjoyed to talk about being able to be poised and answer questions and be confident. They rocked it. They definitely do. So a big shout out to those girls there. They were wonderful. And we also learned from them that they run the championship of volleyball too. Yes. So that was also a good shout out. So we had the student engagement discussion during that meeting, and then we also talked about the parent forum and what that was going to look like and the questions that we were going to ask. We all had a chance to comment on the questions and if we wanted to make any changes with those. Maria, is there any?
I just think it's really productive when we get out and go to another venue, another school for the LCAP. I think that it's very helpful, and I liked that format very much. So it was, again, you can't say enough about how poised our middle school students are. I spoke at that day that I was not that eloquent at that age, and I could not have done what they did. So kudos to all of our teachers who are preparing them to become confident young adults that can express their ideas very eloquently.
And I would like to add that our parent forums are going to be starting. There was a parent forum on Monday at RLS, and there's different dates throughout the month of February of the parent forums, and the dates are up on the screen.
And then on to the Wellness Committee. That was Lisa and myself, and you were not there. No, you were there.
I was
came,
there.
You
I
came,
came-
you late. You
I
came
might have
later.
been a little late.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe I'll let you talk about that, but one thing I want to tag on that I went under the guise of wellness was I attended that high school the college success, the challenge success, and the reason why I opted to go to that was because of mental health and anxiety and the stress that the youth are feeling, and I found it to be a very great presentation. And I mean, I was hoping there would be a few more students there. I thought it was well attended, but having now gone through that 3 times, I thought some of the tools that the Margaret Dunlap talked about as far as a checklist of, things for students to consider, and just trying to get changing the mindset of what success looks like. Success doesn't necessarily always equate to a 4-year college for everybody. And, that doesn't change overnight, but that was a message to just take out the word, I just said it, to take out the word just out of the conversation. And I found that to be a very powerful sentence in that presentation, to say, she's just going to the community college for 2 years. No, she's going to community college. That's awesome. So I thought there were some really great things. So kudos to the high school for bringing that out.
Thank you. And then we did, of course, as always, we had a wonderful meal from Angela Baxter. Let's see, we have a lot of educational opportunities, community opportunities coming up. The Challenge Success we just mentioned. There's going to be a resiliency workshop that happened that Kara Dorian and I attended, or that occurred that Kara Dorian and I attended. It was interesting, but probably peripheral to what we're doing here. And then
Piloting that.
Yes, we're going to be piloting the. I'm
Universal
sorry.
breakfast.
The
You can't read my
breakfast.
writing.
Yes. Maybe I should let Lisa report to them.
So what's going to happen at the primary school? Angela was speaking to about in April. For 3 weeks, they're going to pilot a program known as Universal Breakfast, which will be free to all, and it's after breakfast in place of snack. Correct, but it's called Universal Breakfast, and I have that correct, I think. So that's going to be happening for 3 weeks in April, and if it is successful, perhaps it will go full board for the following school year. Okay.
So, for a little clarification, there was some concern on by some parents that the snacks that parents were bringing for a classroom snack at the primary school were sometimes erratic and not consistent, and there was questionable dietary value to snacks that were being brought. And this way, we can really make something that's brought to students for snacks when they really need snack at that age, that is consistent and healthy and makes it fair to everyone. Any comment by board members? On to the SHTA report to the board. Mr. Brandon Farrell. Thank you.
Good evening. I don't have a lot of new things to report, although I did want to talk a little bit about the calendar. I know it's coming up in March. And I thought the process was, a very engaging process that we started in the fellowship meeting in winter. I really appreciate the opportunity, and the SHTA members appreciate the opportunity to put feedback in there. And we listened, the district listened to a lot of our feedback, and I think we put together a real good calendar when it comes up. And after the professional development committee, I think just met yesterday, right? Yeah. So I think they're going to put the finishing touches on it, and I think it was a really positive process, and we put together a student first type calendar. So, that's really all I have to say. I do have to scoot. I don't know if you heard the ambulance whiz by earlier. So we have to have a girl with, unfortunately, went to the hospital in softball practice, so I have to scoot that way. So, all right.
Public comment? Any questions? We'll be moving on to 8D. Ms. Avina is not here today, and we do not have a written report. So on to item 8E, Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, your report, please.
Good evening. Yes, would like to take us back to, it's that time of year again. We're coming up on March 24th, which is Give Big. That is the collaboration between the St. Helena Public Schools Foundation and all of our parent groups to raise monies that enhance our core programs at all 4 of our schools. The Give Big Committee has been doing an excellent job this year identifying the methods in which, or the enhancements in which they have offered to each of our schools. And I do encourage all of us to consider giving something, $2.40, $24, $240, whatever makes your heart sing, to continue to enhance the education for our students. Our students will follow suit and commit to Run Big, which is scheduled for Friday, April 3rd. That is the Friday before our spring break. You'll recall that that is a minimum day. We will begin at the high school at 11:15, and the high schoolers will, in typical form, run to RLS and pick those students up. They will all run to the elementary school, and then we will culminate at the primary school, where all of the students will cheer on the younger ones to run a few laps around the field. This is a color race, and so students who enjoy having color on their clothing can have some color tossed on them. And following the run, students who typically go to the Boys and Girls Club will still go, and we will have lunch there for them. All students will have a breakfast prior to the 11:15, so all students will have an opportunity for food, and if possible, we'll have snacks for them during a Run Big at the culmination. We're very excited to add a conservation water station. Our football players will be using the water station that they use during football games to share waters with the students, and we just know that our primary and elementary students are going to think that that's really fun. I think the board is aware that earlier this school year, we began partnering with the Napa County Bike Coalition. They received a grant to take a look at all of the schools in the county, look at students coming and going to school, look at traffic patterns, look at bicycle patterns, look at safety. And they are still in the process of collecting that data. They have observed some of the schools. They have a few more meetings, and part of that grant includes a survey to parents and community members around safety at each of our schools. While they are still completing that audit and preparing their report, they also learned about a potential grant with the city of St. Helena and requested a letter of support from me in moving forward with that grant. What you see on the screen now is my letter of support for the coalition to potentially receive a grant from the city of St. Helena. There are 4 different aspects within this grant, all around continued safety needs, and I would be very excited to know that they received this grant. we have very safe schools, and our community cares deeply about our children, and we need to continue to fine-tune our practice and ensure that students are able to get to school and home from school safely. And then finally, I wanted to mention that on February 28th, excuse me, the high school students will be competing against staff during their annual basketball game. I know that Mr. Christopher Heller is playing. Mr. Olguin, are you playing again this year? Okay, so the game starts at about 11:44. Mr. Cinto, are you playing as well? Oh, yes. Mr. Fetters? Yes. So we have four of the staff team right here. If any of our other board members are interested in playing, it is a co-ed team. And if you'd like to watch, please join me. I'll be walking to the gym at about 11:30 on the 28th to join in the lots of fun. That ends my report. February 28th. I'll make sure to put it in the Friday memo for all of you.
Next, I would like to thank all of our principals for reading our Students of the Month from each of their schools. And thank you also to all of our principals for their reports. They will be reading their Student of the Month names, and then we will have questions afterwards if there's any board or public comment.
Easiest report we've given, I think. So at the high school, the character trait that we recognize this month was diligence. And in grade 9, we have Anais Martinez Alcala and Jake Newhart. In grade 10, Fiona Crowley and Orlando Segura. In grade 11, Jade Schlatter and Emmett Bowen. And then in grade 12, Emma Pierce and Liam Milliken.
The students at RLS who were recognized this month for being safe, respectful, and responsible were Anouk Spursky, Lasagna Lopez Galvin, and Anais Hernandez.
At the elementary school, also recognized for being safe, respectful, and responsible. In third grade, Kieran Albright, Tyler Allenson, Ezekiel Calderon, Sylvie Cooperman, Ricardo Garcia, Penny Hoffmeister, Franco Nunez, and Brandon Solario. In fourth grade, McKenna Golick, Jaden Moody Alfaro, Brian Ramirez Vasquez, Jocelyn Sanchez, Jocelyn Serven, Tyler Eulery, Brandon Ventura. And in fifth grade, Sloan Albright, Camila Maldonado, Sierra Pearson, James Politowski, Christian Romero, Jesus Salomon, and Karina Straffs.
For in honoring being safe, respectful, and responsible, we have Liam Tamarez, Amelia Montelli, Fernando Oliveira, Amina Larson, Sofia Cortez, Sophie Amador, Jesus Nava, Theo Mitchell, Blake Foreman, Yelena Ivanovic, Chase Oliver, Julia Gamble, and Hudson Baxter.
Thank you, our site principals, and thank you for all your reports. Do I have any public comment? Any board member comment?
Yes, I have one comment, or more of a question for Principal Cox. On the screenagers, the next chapter, I'm just wondering how it was received by the students, because I think there was some confusion that it was this same movie redone, and I know like parent perception was, I don't need to see that again, and I'm just wondering how attendance was and what the feedback was from the students.
The students saw it in their class, so all of our students saw it. It was built into the schedule, so sixth graders saw it all together, seventh graders saw it all together, and then eighth graders saw it all together, and the feedback was positive, especially for seventh and eighth grade. I think it was, they got it more. Parents, feedback from parents was very positive, and all of the parent surveys were happy about it. There wasn't a huge group. There was probably 12, I think. It's pretty standard. Yeah. Thank you.
So moving on to the consent agenda. These are items that are routine in nature. Do I have, does anyone want to pull any items out of the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda item 9?
Actually, I apologize. I do want to pull on the contracts under 25,000 because I had to question on that, and I don't think I didn't see an answer come in prior to tonight's meeting. So if I could pull that off and then ask my question.
Can we? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item C, contracts under 25,000?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 9C, contracts under 25,000. Lisa, please ask.
The question was the dates, the term of the contract for the San Joaquin County Office of Education. I had just noticed that the dates were somewhat retroactive to today's date, so I wanted some clarification on that, and we were approving something retroactively. So I thought that was just something I would get clarification on.
Right, and when they are contracts under $25,000, then we have authority to proceed with the work with the understanding that the contract is ratified by the board sometimes at a later date. And if I recall, this work occurred very close to the winter break, and so there was just some timing issues with trying to get the work done and then get the approval in.
Perfect, thank you. Just want a public clarification. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve item 9C, contracts under 25,000?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On to 10, student learning and achievement. 10A, presentation of the 2019-2020 LCAP monthly update. Mr. Christopher Heller.
Thank you. Good evening. So tonight, just revisiting the 3 overarching LCAP goals, but I will tell you tonight's focus is on district mathematics. And for some strange reason, I've been very excited to do this presentation. I've kind of annoyed Mary Lou and Erica with how excited I am, because there's been a lot of work that we've done in the district since I've started in 4 years. We've come a long way, and we're going to highlight some of the key features, but it's not an all-inclusive list, but it is very encouraging about our progress in mathematics. So I do want to share that with the board this evening. So it probably comes as no surprise, but mathematics typically used to be numerically driven, and the more we take a look at it, it actually does focus a lot on vocabulary. So I put a little bit of a couple examples up on the screen there, showing how key vocabulary is in understanding math and how to break apart problems to have a better sense of what word problems students are being asked to do, and using the visuals and hands-on concepts. I have a video that I'll show in a couple slides that really illustrates how visual and hands-on supports mathematics and understanding vocabulary. I will also note in the bottom right corner you see a little bit of geometry that in my previous life as an 8th grade math teacher I taught, and that picture was snapshotted from a 1st grade classroom. So it's amazing how much we're asking 1st graders to do compared to what I used to ask 8th graders to do when I was teaching. One of the key instructional practices that is used in mathematics and in other disciplines is deconstructing problems. And you can see 2 examples here where you take a problem or a strategy and you break it apart into easier chunks to understand. This will help develop a better understanding of, if I were to use that example of the number of the day on 206, students create 4 different ways to come up with that total number, and using hundreds, tens, and ones. So they have to find 4 different ways to make that number, and that helps have a better sense of the value of 206. So it's making a larger problem into smaller chunks to have a better understanding. And this video right here, this is our consultant from West Ed, John Paul, working with a fourth grade team. John Paul is very animated and a very good instructor, and he'll show you how the use of movement and the use of visual and hands-on learning impacts students' learning in mathematics.
And something I have to figure out. Blew over, and I have to fix it. It has to be replaced. So the word "and," ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, say "and." And how the author's using this is not two things are happening. The author's using it to tell you something happened and it needs to be replaced. Watch me, boys and girls. We are going to talk about what needs to be replaced. So let's talk more about this. In this word problem, we're not solving it right now, shall we? We're understanding the use of the language. So there's multiple meanings, there's verb tense, there's past and present tense, there's that causal conjunction. But what about math vocabulary?
That's just a very small snippet of the work that he's been doing with our grade level teams. And when he comes to work with our staff, it's not just he shows up and does a presentation and leaves. There's some pre-work that needs to be done. The teachers during the training are engaged. He's amazing on how he can get all staff to be engaged and motivated to work during his trainings. And then he has some homework for them to do in preparation for the next session that they do in their training. So this is just a sample of the work that he's done. This is from September. And so he's visited, as you could see, in November, and he just visited last week in February. So the work that he continues to do with our TK5 staff has been phenomenal. In addition to West Ed, we have a new curriculum at the high school. We have some coaching going on there. And we also, if you'll recall, have a partnership with UC Davis where they're also doing some additional coaching, TK8, and hopefully expanding to the high school. That work has been with UC Davis has been very well received too. So it's a great partnership between West Ed and UC Davis to support mathematics. Personally, for me, 4 years ago, we started the Math Task Force, and that group was a TK-12 group of teachers to sit down and take a look at our whole math program and see what we can do to improve. And that really had opened the door. It used to be a district-led meeting with myself and Mary Allen providing much of the direction from the district, and now it's an open meeting where the math teachers fill in the agenda with things that they want to talk about because we've had such a great relationship in building articulation TK-12 that they look forward to the meeting to continue the conversation and not only find out what's going on at the other sites, but to talk about how they can align their standards a little bit better. And one of the conversations from a meeting that we had led to this past vertical articulation day that we had in February because the math staff really wanted to take a look at vocabulary that was being used, TK through 12, and see where there's words that we need to emphasize and some terms that we need to de-emphasize that would allow to build continuity throughout the grade levels. And you could see a sample of this. I took a snapshot of this. Of the work that they did from a Google Doc, and this was done in all content areas, but this was a snapshot of what they did to kind of align some of the terms that they're using throughout the grade levels, and also by the same token start to sunset some terms that they no longer want to have because they don't reappear throughout the years. So I think as we talked about vocabulary and alignment, I think this is a great step forward. And it continues a great conversation in the Math Task Force. We've presented this data before, but I just wanted to share with you that we are seeing positive trends in our data in mathematics. We are trending in the right direction, and I feel that the work that we're doing is building each year in each grade level, and just having casual conversations with middle school teachers and high school teachers. They've noticed a difference in how students approach mathematics. Students don't just get frustrated by a problem and say, I'm not good at math, or give up. They enjoy the challenge. They enjoy working through problems. They see that as part of the growth mindset to tackle challenges and not just give up on the first time that they don't get something. And when you go through the middle school, you'll see that errors are, they're all over the wall, and they're encouraged, because that's part of the mathematical process. Is you're going to make mistakes, and and that's fine. But the idea is that you keep exploring mathematics, and we're seeing that in our results, and we're trending in the right direction. For me, this is a great example. Don't start the video yet, but when I went to the elementary school the other day, I was standing in the theater watching the morning assembly, and a student on the way out in third grade said, "Can we measure you?" And so I said, "Sure, yeah, I'll come by your class." And so using a ruler, they wanted to determine how tall I was. And it was great because the teacher said, "This student normally is not engaged in mathematics, but just seeing you and having that inquisitive nature of, well, how tall is he?" So this is a sample of, well, this is their attempt at estimation. So we'll show you how they were performing this task. Now you do 6. Make sure you get that 6 and what?
7 and a half. No, 6 and 6. No, 6 9.
So they were estimating, but that's a mathematical practice. And so I told them if they got it correct, they were going to send me a Google email to give a one class guess, and I would bring them back a prize. And unfortunately, their first guess was incorrect, but I did give them another opportunity, and I'm still waiting for their replies. So I will report back on how they did as a class next meeting. But that just, for me, that's a sample of where a student may not be engaged in mathematics, but just having that inquisitive nature and wanting to learn and just tackling a problem like this shows that all students can learn mathematics, and that kind of defeats that notion that I'm not good at math or I can't do math. Even when students are challenged a little bit, that something like this might actually turn it around and have her really engaged in mathematics. So we want to keep encouraging that. Moving forward, we want to continue doing our work with the UC Davis partnership. We feel like that's a great partnership to continue in working on mathematical practices with them. As you know, throughout our reports, we want to continue to take a look at our intervention program, grades 6 through 12, to make sure that we're meeting all the students and supporting them as they travel through the different levels of mathematics in high school and middle school. And, I said it before, but we really want to continue to use the Math Task Force as a great way to receive feedback and continue our discussions about mathematics in the districts and next steps we might need to take. And that is my report.
Any public comment? Board members, comments, questions?
I have one quick question. As far as the math task force, is it the same? Is it consistent as far as the members from year to year, or does that change, or how does it work?
It started with a few more members than it is today, but we have a consistent, I'd say 8 to 10 that show up, and there's representation from every school.
Okay.
So it's a good sampling of our teaching population, and it's very engaging. They want to come. They populate the agenda. So it's been a great transition from a district-led committee to a teacher-led committee to talk about the things that they want. And of course, we put a few things on there that we feel are important to address. But for the most part, they've really taken it over.
They put the agenda together and things. Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any more comments? Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Chris.
welcome.
Really appreciate it. Onto the next agenda item is item 10B, presentation of the St. Helena Primary and Elementary School Spanish programs. I'd like to call on Ms. Tamara Sanguinetti and Ms. Tanya Pearson.
Thank you. And appreciate this opportunity. The last few months we've all spoken about equity and how that looks through all of our 4 school sites. And this will be the kickoff to our focus on Spanish language instruction within our district. Though we're focusing today, Ms. Sanguinetti and myself, on Spanish language, it is part of a pathway of world languages. So just that step within that, and then as students get a bit older, they're able to branch out to other languages as well. And as far as the structure, I'm really excited for this, the opportunity this year has afforded to expand. Oh, there we go. To expand our offerings, to not only be strategic in how we've been structuring the regular Spanish language instruction class, which would be a TK 5th grade class that's once a week. That first bullet is a once a week for 40 minutes a day. That is regular Spanish language instruction. We also have opportunities for a few more creative ways that we've infused more Spanish instruction into the week for the students as well. All TK 5th graders as well take PE. And fortunately, we have Coach Ismael Martin, who's fluent in Spanish. He's got a background in second language instruction and support for second language learners. And he's been able to shift to ideally target about 60% of his instruction being in Spanish and then also English. It varies depending on the grade level, depending on some of the units that he's doing, but it's just wonderful, and you'll get a chance to see some of that in action later in this presentation. And then just have been thrilled at the process that we're able to engage in over the last couple years to get to the point of now having a full-time BSTEAM, so bilingual science, technology, engineering, art, math teacher. Ms. Anjali Chandran's been a wonderful addition to our district as well. Also at TK 5th grade, we'll hear a little bit more about her program, but she works bilingually, so about half and half or so with English and Spanish as well. And then 5th grade gets an extra boost. So as we think about the transition from elementary, where goals are to make kids feel excited about the language, learn, be open, model some of the at a formative age where they can make and pronounce words more easily at a younger age. That's done in a week, sort of a one-shot a week from each of those teachers. And then Miss Olguin, Mariana Olguin, comes as well to 5th grade and is able to teach an extra half an hour a week to all of the 5th grade classes. She's an RLS Spanish teacher, and so she works to see what she can do to start engaging with students so that they're connecting with her as a teacher, and also with the types of program that they'll be doing if they were to choose to then be part of either the wheel or a year-long Spanish program that they can do in 6th grade. And so what that might look like on a daily basis. They have interactive journals, they have homework, they come in very quickly and they use all their minutes. I hear her talking about not getting tardies and things, so just really helping them feel that they're making that step, and what that would look like at the middle school has been great. That's been going on for 2 years now as well. And then into what some of those programs look like. Again, the TK 5th grade Spanish language program is taught this year by a new teacher, Miss Gabi Rubio, who's wonderful. She does a few things, so just to highlight, she does many different things within her program, but what she consistently will focus on with all those grade levels is, one, looking at our positive behavior intervention strategies. She helps to validate positive behavior. She talks about rules. She often gives out tickets and awards as she's doing the classes to help students realize how to be really engaged learners and how to celebrate their studies in a really creative, fun way. She even has students at the older grades assess how the day went and tries to do all of that in Spanish and give themselves sort of like a numerical evaluation so that they're self-evaluating and really striving to be excellent students. Also, she's looking at multicultural global units, not just the Latino cultures, but she will, for example, you'll see some examples of the work that she did incorporating Chinese New Year into the language program. You see some example from the primary school looking at Martin Luther King Day. She brought in the concept of having a dream and what their dreams may be, or their sueños about building a better world. And she's doing that at all the grade levels as well. And then really getting grounded into the Spanish language and how Spanish and social studies can integrate together. She has some experience with the GLAD instruction, and then so the language and then also the social studies themes she's been able to incorporate, and that's a goal of hers, is to continue to do that as well. And I'll invite Ms. Sanguinetti to continue.
Good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the programs, but I did want to talk a little bit about some big changes and shifts that I've noticed in the classroom. And one of them is that I'm really starting to see our Spanish speakers, that English is their second language, they're starting to be the star of the classroom. And at first they were kind of embarrassed to speak in their native language, but now the confidence that's come over them and that kids are looking to them and asking them, how do you say this? Or what can you help me with that? And that for me has been a really huge shift. And in the same sense, I've seen a shift in our English only speakers that didn't speak Spanish before, and they were afraid to take risks before. And now I'm seeing that shift where they'll give it a try, even if it might not sound exactly like the word. Their confidence has shifted as well. So that's not part of our presentation, but it's observations that I've seen when I go in the classroom, which I think is equally important as to what we're speaking about tonight. So as Tanya spoke about that PE, we're very fortunate to have Coach Martin, who is bilingual. And so when he teaches his classes, he obviously is following the California state standards for physical education, but he uses regularly total physical response. So if you go in his classroom and if he's using the word saltar, he is jumping the same time he's doing that. And so PE is a really great place to have Spanish because you can use your whole body to demonstrate what the word means. And there are also Spanish cognates. And so he has the learning intentions up on his board. And when he does when it's raining, which it hasn't been lately, but he does stations in his room, and those posters he uses are written in English and Spanish. And he does a really good job of that. And as Tanya spoke about, the next class is our B-STEAM teacher. And she, we just hit the jackpot because she has so much experience in science as well as being bilingual. So she really focuses on engineering aspect of NGSS, the science. And she also does art as well, but she does a lot of project-based learning. And in the science, there are also a lot of cognates. So when she's talking to children and beginning a lesson, she talks about the word construir, which means to construct. And so that's a cognate that people can kind of figure out. Or when she uses the word labyrinth, it's very similar in Spanish. So the kids are able to really understand that. And she also is very consistent on giving procedural directions to kids. Like when she talks about, vamos a doblar el papel, vamos a usar los tijeras. So she's really good about that as well. And the kind of teaching she does is very project-based. The kids are given a problem, they work collaboratively, and they solve that problem. And sometimes the problems are thematic, sometimes they have to do with what students are studying in their science class, but it's all very well connected. And we wanted to spend some time with this because I think this is really important, that we already have identified some next steps. And this has already occurred, that our TK5 Spanish teacher has met on our vertical articulation day with the secondary Spanish teachers. And there are plans for her. She wants to continue to meet with them so we can really create a TK5 world language program, that we want this TK5. It's not an immersion program. It's really just kind of creating some foundations and more of an enrichment program. But we want that program to be a really clear pathway to students becoming bilingual, biliterate. The next step is that we previously had a program with our Spanish teacher last year. It was called SimTalk. And it's a program that uses, it's basically for younger students because it doesn't have a lot of words. It's lots of pictures and manipulation, and so and really encourages kids to talk, and that's what we really want them to do in the younger grades. And so since she started kind of not right after the year began, that's something that she has an interest in doing, is becoming more fluent in SimTalk. Tanya's going to finish it out and show our video.
Nice. A few more points for the next step, if the PowerPoint could be on still. The collaboration will also continue through the summer. The teachers are excited to go and attend a foreign language conference together. So we'll see that from our elementary through high school teachers also attending that together. Looking forward to that. There's also a type of, to be more consistent with what process that's done at the middle school. There's a process, instructional strategy, and some training that our Senora Rubio will be getting. It's called TPRS. So it's similar to TPR, but in this case, it's total proficiency through reading and storytelling. And that is a professional development that she'll be going to. It's a way for students to really look at mini novels, really nice content of a lot of words and kind of like more complex stories, and then be able to understand how to ask questions, how to answer questions, and how to use really engaging strategies, often that are grounded in like the who, what, when, where, why, with repetition, playful, like kind of jokes and things tied in that are really highly engaging and interesting to students. And it builds on comprehension with certain kind of reads to do some things, act other things out, just a lot of props and ways for people at all language levels. If you're fluent or if you're a native speaker or just beginning, there's access points in through this type of strategy. So she's heard some good information about it and is looking forward to also continuing that. And that would be similar to what some of the language instructors are doing also at the RLS in the high school. And then within the team of the TK5 team, we're working to see how we can have them have a little bit of release time and some common prep time as well, so that they're thinking about that Spanish being an instructional component, but if they can coordinate verb tenses or know which teacher is going to teach certain types of structures, and if they're doing that at the same time, then we really feel like they're going to be spiraling and reinforcing in a really effective way. So working on a rubric of sorts and a scope and sequence for their instruction between the classes. And then finally, we do have a video to show. In this case, instead of just tying together a piece from each class, we instead look to see what type of instructional strategies that you can see. And so you'll see these highlighted in some of the topics that you'll see. You may not speak Spanish, but hopefully with reading what it says, it will also give you a little bit of insight into what the teachers are doing and the strategies that they're using in order to reinforce the language acquisition. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Any public comment? Board members, questions and comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just feel that we've come a really, really long way, and thank you for really giving these opportunities to our students.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Can I say something real quick? I just wanted to say as well, as far as the district, just I know that early on this was something that parents were looking for, more Spanish, and understanding that obviously the day is jam-packed. So I appreciate the fact that we're trying to find creative ways to get more Spanish to students in any language. I mean, but I think also just something interesting is the focus on the oral aspect, because I feel like if anything, I mean, if you take Spanish, K through 12th grade, I think the very important thing is that you can communicate. So I know reading's important and writing's important, but to have our students be able to communicate, I think that's a focus. It seems like we're trying to focus with the younger ones, but I think that's important because at a certain age, you kind of, if you don't practice it, you're not able to communicate. So I think, and also just tying in another real quick point, some of our Spanish-speaking parents, like finding a way to incorporate them to use their Spanish, and and I don't know at what level, but definitely like using their Spanish to practice the oral aspect of it. So, just a thought.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we're on to a written report that is the enrollment study. I want to just ask the public if there's any public comment on this enrollment study. It is a written report. Board members, any questions or comments?
No, I just appreciate having it. It's full of a lot of great information. So thank you for having it done.
It's amazing that a few months can really make a difference in our numbers, and I just think that we always have to be constantly looking at what's happening in our community to see the direction our enrollment is heading, and I think we always have to take into consideration the district of choice impact on our district. I keep pushing the wrong button. Next, we have an update on the Green Initiative. Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. The board has approved a Green Initiative resolution that addresses energy usage, environmental education, and environment-friendly technologies. And the resolution is currently being reviewed and updated for an upcoming board meeting. There are several components to the initiative that we monitor on an ongoing basis. For example, it addresses the use of non-toxic maintenance supplies, and I was just recently discussing weed abatement with our Director of Facilities and Aquatics, who reviewed what he was doing with me, and we're currently using some non-toxic materials, and we've discontinued the use of Roundup since early 2017-18. Tonight's focus, however, is on green energy. And we've been engaging in several activities to support green energy and conservation. One thing that I'm planning to do this spring is reach out to Bright Schools, which is a program operated by the California Energy Commission. And they offer services to help school districts identify the most cost-effective energy savings, including grants. And then additionally, we're looking at possible renewable energy consulting contract. And so that consultant would review some different options with us with regard to batteries and energy storage, the different elements that you see there, incremental solar, and then also looking at alternative energy providers, for example, marine clean energy, as a way to potentially reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then additionally, we're looking at internal practices, and we always do that. We monitor our energy bills. We're currently looking at personal use of equipment in the classrooms, and we certainly want to involve students and staff in awareness. And then we're also looking at how we might utilize the existing RLS solar panel. And so then the timeline for these activities, we are working right now on obtaining proposals from a variety of different renewable energy consultant firms. We're going to share all of this information with the Business Operations Committee when they meet again March 4th. And we'll be getting their feedback on the proposals, and then hopefully bringing a contract for that energy consultation to the board April 2nd, 2020, and then continuing with ongoing updates. And this information is presented as information only, so open it up for questions.
Is there any public comment on this item? Board members, questions or comments? Jeannie?
I do. So in the internal practices, evaluate utilization of the existing RLS solar panel. What does that mean exactly?
We want to take a look at how we're using the current solar panel there and see if there's any capacity to do something different with it, maybe do some kind of a mini grid. I think it may be too small to do some sort of a mini grid where we've got additional storage, but the consultant can help us to make sure that we're maximizing use of that solar panel. And another key piece of all this work, too, is education and involving the students and finding ways to work with the instructional staff to incorporate more green activities in the classroom, too.
Any other comments on the green initiative and energy?
I'm just happy that we're looking at all of this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, and on to facilities. That's item 12A, and I'd like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. The board approved some time ago a significant renovation project for a Vintage Hall roof. And so we have advertised for bids, and we came in with 2 bids, which our roofing consultants helped us review. And we are pleased to request that the board consider approval of a contract with Solano County Roofing for the Vintage Hall roof replacement project. And this did come in under budget by approximately $39,000. Maybe, Erica, if you can cursor down a little bit, I can see what that number is. Looks like, I apologize, just under $37,000. And so I would ask the board to consider approval of a contract with Solano Roofing.
Is there any public comment on this item? Trustees, any questions or comments?
I was curious about a warranty related to this project.
Yes, we do have it under warranty. The work will be under warranty, and I need to circle back and then see how long that will be.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'm sorry, excuse me. And this is summer work, is that correct? This is what's this summer?
Yes, they'll begin some of the abatement and preparation work, hopefully over spring break, with all the work to be completed this summer.
Great, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the contract award to Solano County Roofing for the Vintage Hall roof replacement project as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Human Resources, item 13A. I'd like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller for consideration of adoption of Resolution 19-16.
Great, thank you. This resolution is brought to the board this evening to provide a 60-day notice to a CSEA employee in the matter of reducing their daily assignment by 1 hour effective March 2nd, moving forward for 60 days. The effects of this have been negotiated with the employee and CSEA, and so I would ask for your consideration of approval this evening.
Comment on this item? Board members, any comments? No. This will be a roll call vote. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 19-16 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 19-16.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As many are in favor of the adoption of the resolution will, as their name is called, answer aye. Those opposed will answer no. Dr. Wilson will call the roll.
Yes, Trustee Conwell.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
Vice President Pelosi.
Aye.
President Haug.
Aye.
The motion carries.
The motion carries, sorry. Yes. Item 14, a request for approval of contracts over $25,000.
Thank you. We've got 3 for the board to consider this evening. The first is with Christie White Associates. They're currently our financial independent auditors, and we would like for the board to consider approving another 3-year contract with them. They've done a great job for us. The second is with Apple Inc. In the amount not to exceed $45,115.70 for 140 iPads, and this would be part of our refresh program, where the goal is to refresh the first grade iPads as well as have a bank of iPads for each school to use. And so we can currently fit this into this year's technology budget. We wanted to go ahead and purchase those early so that the IT staff could prepare them over spring break. And then be prepared to stage their work with the other devices that we'll be purchasing for the beginning of the 2021 school year. We will also be purchasing Chromebooks for the incoming 3rd and 6th graders, and then laptops for the incoming 9th graders, and that's part of our annual refresh cycle. But we'll be purchasing those likely with next year's dollars. And then finally, we have the contract with the Napa County Office of Education, and this is for conversion to the Escape financial software system. We have been using a system called Digital Schools for many years now, but due to some corporate mergers and changes in the support of the technology, we're having to migrate to a different product owned by the same company, and that product is called Escape. Our team has worked with it. Most of our team has worked with it in the past. They like it very much. The contract will cost a little bit more than what our current agreement is with Digital Schools. And when we did sign up with Digital Schools years ago, we got a reduced contract with them because it was a beta test program. And so we did expect a bit of an increase with this agreement. And so if we're comparing costs for 2019 with Digital Schools to 2020-21, then we're seeing an increase of approximately $21,000. And so you'll see this cost reflected in the second interim report. And then you can see the costs projected out over the next several years. And so with that, I would ask the board to consider approval of these 3 contracts over $25,000.
Is there any wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions or comments?
I just have one quick question. So just refresh my memory. So with the technology for the Apple Inc., didn't we just refresh the 9th grade laptops this last year, or was that?
Our cycle is to purchase for each incoming class, and so then we're on a 4-year replacement cycle, essentially. For every year, we'll purchase devices for the incoming 3rd grade, 6th grade and 3rd and 6th grade for Chromebooks, and then 9th grade for laptops. And then with the primary school, we did, I believe, Kinder last year. We're doing 1st grade this year, and we'll probably do another batch for 2nd grade next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so the idea is that we're trying to spread the budget out rather than do a whole, a big school-wide purchase like we used to, yeah.
Right.
And that also helps because the devices change so rapidly, so that way we get onto a cycle where they have the most updated version. And then those devices carry with the students for those years.
I see. That was my next question. So the ninth graders right now will get the same laptop as they did this year for their 10th grade year.
Yes.
So they just use it throughout the time. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you.
I actually just thought of a question. Does Apple take back our older units then to repurpose or recycle?
They do. However, I think that we are probably going to be continuing to use the current units. Yeah, I can provide the board with an update about that.
Just was curious, rather than reuse, reduce, recycle kind of thing.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So is there any one that would like to make a motion to approve, approve contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve contracts over $25,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion is carried. I was considering taking a break, but we do have 2 agenda items left that would take some discussion. Are board members comfortable going forward, or is there anyone that needs to take a break?
I'm okay.
Okay, so let's go forward. Item 14B, first board review of the 2020-2021 budget assumptions.
Thank you. And this is the first review of these assumptions. The Business Operations Committee has looked at them over their meetings, most recently during the December 11th, 2019 meeting. And what I've done is all the items that the committee has not seen, I've highlighted in yellow, with the exception of that one bullet point there up at the top there that I just couldn't unformat. And then everything that's shaded in gray, they have seen, but the board hasn't seen yet. And so as we go through the document, you'll see a few items, small changes that are highlighted in yellow, numerical items that have to do with the governor's proposal for 2021. So his budget for next year was released January 10th. And so those changes reflect the state budget. And then we've got a couple of things that I'd like to talk through with the board. The first would be on page 3. And we always, in our budget assumptions, have a comment that administration looks at the staffing for each year. And so we're currently developing the staffing for 2021. Additionally, we're evaluating the possible addition of a separate transition program for our students who are 18 to 22 years of age, who have disabilities. And so this will result in an increase in staffing for next year if implemented. So we're currently evaluating budget. And when you see the second interim report in March, you'll see a placeholder in the multi-year projection in 2021 that reflects the amount that we're anticipating in that time. And then if we go down a little further, to page 6. So the board has been contributing a large amount to Fund 14 each year for deferred maintenance. We have another account in the general fund called the Routine Restricted Maintenance Account. And before the Great Recession, school districts were required to contribute 3% of their general fund expenditures to that account. Then when the Great Recession hit, districts were no longer required to do that. But then with the passing of time, the legislation has changed. And so now districts are required to do that again, unless they're a small district with ADA less than 1,200. And so in past years, we haven't had to make that contribution, but we still had a substantial contribution to Fund 14 to meet the district's facilities needs. But this past year, our ADA did exceed the 1,200, and so for this year, we went ahead and budgeted that larger amount in the routine restricted maintenance account, although it does look as if our ADA will continue to be less. We haven't done our P2 ADA yet, but I anticipate it'll be what our P1 was, which I think was 1192. And so what we're attempting to do here, now that we're close to that 1,200 ADA mark, is budget what the district's contribution was to Fund 14. We want to budget that in routine restricted maintenance instead, so we can meet that requirement. So we're still approving about the same amount towards deferred maintenance and routine restricted maintenance. We're just keeping it in the account that keeps us compliant with the law. And so, so then you'll see the contribution of Fund 14 decrease in next year's budget because now we're putting it in this different account. But it can still be used for all the same purposes. And then finally, as we're seeking to balance the budget for 2021, on page 8, you see that we've crossed out the allocation for future-ready classrooms, which we had budgeted above the line, and instead we're including that as a component of the fund balance of the reserves, so that we're considering we're using one-time monies for those expenditures. So we'll still be pursuing our future-ready classrooms projects. It's just that we're going to be using one-time reserves instead of having a line item above. And so the purpose of that is to keep us with a balanced budget. And I think those are the only major changes with the assumptions. And so this is presented for information only, and they'll come back to the board.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Board members, trustees, any comments or questions?
I don't at this time. I just have a question about the Officer Brown's, her position as a student resource. So it was a tobacco grant that she's using right now to be paid. How long is that grant? And then who will, in order to continue those services, how is that going to work?
I believe, and Dr. Wilson will correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that that grant, which was applied for and received by the City Police Department, will last for one more year, so next year. And so that may be a program. The board may recall during the first interim that we had a chart where if property taxes came in above a certain threshold and we had a budgetary surplus again, the board may consider some additional support towards that position.
And the grants are ongoing grants funded by tobacco sales.
I see. Okay.
And my understanding is that the city will continue to reapply for that grant.
Those. Okay. Right.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I'm good. Okay. Oh, actually, I do. I have one more. As far as the transition classroom, how much staffing does it look like it might be, like additional staffing?
We're currently discussing that. I anticipate
conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Certainly there will be some certificated staff and some paraeducator staff, and then some support resources.
Okay.
President Howard, may I ask Mr. Heller to give a paragraph summary of what's happening with the transition program?
Yes, and that would be helpful. I mean, I'm assuming that we're working on this, and would they be at all providing any assistance as well?
Yes, we've met several times with the Calistoga administration, and currently we have some design plans for the transition program that we want to have I don't want to say approved, but worked with SELPA, our Napa County SELPA, and having our SELPA director, Jenny Maywald, lead our next meeting, which will be in the end of February for next steps. The program right now appears to have equitable contribution from both districts. And so with that piece in place, we can begin looking at what the program actually is and begin the design of the program. So that's where we are as of today. So it's moving forward.
And it's something we have to do. Is that correct? I mean, this is something that's been noticed that has to be done because of the age of the individuals and the situation. Is that correct?
We need to offer a transition program for our 18 to 22 students.
Thank you very much.
Then would SELPA then kick in any money for this, since we're changing what we're doing as far as our special education?
Right now, we have a partnership with Calistoga, and we're involving our Napa County SELPA to determine if that's feasible.
I see. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item 14C, that is the 2019-2020 transportation update. And I'd like to call on Mrs. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. Here's a quick snapshot of the topics we'll be covering this evening. And this is the list of all the board policies and administrative regulations that apply to transportation. And so 3250 board policy and AR has to do with transportation fees. And so for each of these board policies and ARs, I've just captured the most salient points there, which you can read through. Board policy and AR 3540 addresses transportation on the whole and kind of the board's intent with providing that service. 3541 addresses routes and services. And then 3541.2 addresses transportation for students with disabilities. And what's most notable there is that the district is required by law to provide transportation for students for whom it is in their individual education plans. And so here we see a snapshot of the current year services. We work with Napa Valley Unified School District. We have a contract with them. We have for the past 3 years. It does terminate June 30th, 2020. Currently, they provide 2 buses. We own 1 bus, and then they provide 3 drivers. They also provide driver training, bus maintenance, and administrative costs. They have provided very limited field trip transportation, and then additionally we have an agreement with Zoom Transportation for students with disabilities who attend non-public schools outside of St. Helena. And then finally, we have an MOU with Calistoga, whereby they transport students residing in Calistoga who attend our schools through a special education enrollment agreement. This picture here shows what our student ridership is currently, and so we transport approximately 89 students in the morning, and then about the same amount in the afternoon, but then we also make an additional stop transporting about 113 students from the primary school to the Boys and Girls Club. And those are the 3 routes that are operated. And then the next 3 slides just give the board a visual of our 3 different routes. This is the Angwin route, and the farthest distance as the crow flies is 6 miles from the Angwin Plaza stop, which is actually an out-of-district stop, to the farthest school in our district. And then this is Lake Berryessa route, and the farthest distance there is about 13 miles. And then finally, the current in-town bus, which also has wheelchair accessibility, and that the farthest distance there is about 8 miles. And so you can see our current costs just with Napa Unified. In 2018-19, we approached $360,000 in costs, and then our original estimate for this year was about $376,000, with the increase due to increased costs of fuel and labor and so forth. But then we had to receive a revised estimate early in the school year, estimating the cost to be closer to $530,000 due to the driver shortage. And so currently Napa Unified has had to contract with Michael's Transportation for outsourced staffing, both for themselves and St. Helena and then Calistoga, who they also serve. And so we captured that increased cost in the first interim report, although we only had to actually increase the budget by about $90,000 because we already had an adequate, we had a cushion built into transportation. And so our challenges are primarily that Napa Unified is no longer going to provide transportation services to the district after June 30th due to a shortage of drivers. And in fact, this is a nationwide and a statewide issue. And then, of course, the cost of providing home-to-school transportation rises each year. There could be some staffing considerations for us, too, if we decided to staff it ourselves. We've looked into contracting with large bus companies. First Student, we used to work with them. I reached out to Durham, checked with Michael's Transportation, and none of them have the capacity right now to provide full services for a variety of reasons. I'm also looking into some more creative solutions. For example, West County Transportation Agency, which is a joint powers authority that serves districts in Sonoma County. And they don't have the staffing to take on new partners right now, but it may be an option in the future, so we'd want to continue researching that. On the consent agenda this evening, the board did approve a contract with Pupil Transportation Information for a transportation analysis. And our current budget is adequate to cover the cost of that study. Calistoga is actually going to pay for about a quarter of that contract, and we'll do a study in collaboration with them. Pupil Transportation Information is the company with whom FICMAT, the Financial Crisis Management and Intervention Team, which is a partner with CSBA and the California Department of Education. That's whom FICMAT contracts with when they do transportation studies, and so I felt very confident about the services that they could provide. And so this evening the board has the opportunity to review some of the different consideration points and engage in some discussion, and then I'll provide the board with an update on March 12th, and then we should have the results of the analysis by April 2nd, and we'll continue to notify parents and keep them updated as we go along, and with the possibility of board action May 6th. If the board so chooses to make any changes to transportation, and then certainly making decisions about how we'll provide transportation moving forward in light of the fact that Napa Unified won't be able to continue. And so certainly when we receive the results of the analysis, the board will have more information upon which to base a decision. Some of the consideration points will include the level of services that the board wants to continue providing. Will we sustain the same level of services? Will we reduce the number of stops and decrease the distance? Will we consider providing transportation only for students for whom it's legally required? How will we manage transporting students from the primary school to the club? So these are all some things to consider as we think about the level of service. And then with regard to service delivery, there's a couple of options there. Potentially we could contract with Michael's Transportation or a similar company for just staffing. We could purchase or lease additional buses. We'd have to consider mechanic and training. Or we could hire our own drivers, and that would have to include probably dispatch and a standby driver. Regardless of how we do the service delivery, moving forward, it's going to cost approximately $500,000 a year to sustain the same level of service that we're doing now if we were to take it on ourselves or hire out for Michael's Transportation staffing. Based on my analysis, even if we were to be able to do something with the West County Transportation Agency, the analysis that they provided was pretty close to that also. So our consultant will help us with more information about what makes the most sense. Additional things for the board to consider as we go through this process is if the board decides to reduce the level of transportation, do they perhaps continue at the same level for another year or so to give parents time to plan? And then would it make sense to continue monitoring other options? So once we get the results of the study, then I think it'll become a little bit more apparent what might be a good course of action for the board to consider. These are some of the resources where I pulled some additional information, including an interesting study about the nationwide driver shortage. And with that, I would ask if the board had any questions at this point.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Thank you, board members. This is going to be our big discussion today. I think that whoever would like to start, we have to give the board direction today on what our priorities are with respect to our current bus services.
President Haug, you don't need to give direction tonight.
I'm sorry, just we'll discuss.
That's the good news. Ms. Stubbs will be bringing a report from the consultant that will help inform your discussion, and so you might spend some time discussing the concerns and the current situation.
Okay. So we can at least discuss what we would like as far as the points that were raised today.
Andy, at this point, do you have any idea in your head logistically about if reducing the number of stops, decreasing the distance, do you have any kind of thoughts on what that might look like now? Are you waiting for the study as well?
I'm really waiting for the study on that.
Okay. Yeah, and I would imagine you would. I just was curious in the in the effort of discussion if you had some thoughts about that. But I mean, truly, I'm hoping that report is really going to give us a nice framework to make some solid decisions from. I mean, high level, if you over $500,000 to transport that many students from a business standpoint, you look at that and I'm just taking the emotional aspect out of it. It's a lot of money. It's not that we don't want to get these kids to school. That's certainly not what that's about. But, if our job as a governing board is to provide financial oversight and look at that, that's what we have to do. I mean, that's to me the big crux of it as well. And I just feel like we can't really do much more other than talk a few other points out until we have the study in hand, at least from my brain. That's the way I'm perceiving it.
And if I may, I think that having to do this study has really provided a good opportunity for us to look at it anyway and to make sure we're doing it as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And the consultants have required a lot of information. They've wanted to see how many students get on at each stop and lots and lots of data, which I think is going to result in a really robust analysis. And then they'll be looking too at what potential partnerships there might be with Calistoga.
I understand that it's a lot of money, but I really do feel that we have to keep in mind that a lot of the students that we service with our buses might be our students that are on free and reduced lunch, and we really have to look at the equity issue of cutting back on any of our busing services. I hope that a study can show ways that we can make our system more efficient, but I do not see that we should be cutting services to getting our students to school. I believe that our students are a priority, and getting them to school and getting allowing them to come to school in a manner that is basically what I consider a human right is our priority.
I'll go. I'm in agreement with the president as well, as far as, obviously looking at every avenue in terms of maintaining the ridership the way it is. But also looking at it from the other end, I mean, it seems like the bus driver shortage is going to be an issue moving forward. I mean, unless there's a uptake in new bus drivers. But so ultimately, I'm kind of leaning at possibly looking at something within if we can do something within the school district to alleviate that, because I think that's always going to be an issue in the next few years. And then just also too, just looking at our enrollment. I think you had the enrollment study that we did, so looking how that's going to affect us if we were to go that route of getting, hiring or training our bus drivers and then purchasing a bus. Like, we want to make sure that it's something that we're obviously going to get the use within the next few years. And then also the DOC, just looking at that as well and seeing how that would affect us moving forward. But ultimately, I think obviously the families that are going to be affected, I think we should keep them in the loop and have them talk to them as far as a part of the conversation and solution. I think that'll be important moving forward.
When I first heard about this, I just got a pit in my stomach just thinking about it. Because for me personally, I think that providing transportation to our student is one of the most important things that we can do as a school district. And I would hate to see us discontinuing service because of the cost. And I understand that it is very expensive to transport these students, but those students need to be in the seats in our schools. And if they are not able to get into school, then what's the use in having them as our students? I mean, that's not said very eloquently by any means. But I don't know. I'm keeping an open mind as far as what we learned from the contract, from the analysis. But I truly believe that the transportation should not be cut, or I should say not discontinued. Shouldn't be discontinued. I think it's absolutely a shame that the state of California doesn't have it as transportation being a requirement for school districts, because I think it's one of the most important things, especially in a rural school district like ourselves, where we're spread out for many, many miles. Some of the things that I've thought of is certainly staffing. And again, we'll see the analysis from the transportation company, but we are very competitive with our wages, and so maybe that will attract bus drivers to work for us as a school district. And I think that it would be, and maybe it's something that we're able to, I don't know, do like a training program or anything. And I certainly don't want to get too far into the weeds with this by any means. It would be fabulous if we were able to partner with Calistoga. I don't know. This is going to be a big topic, and I know just when we first started as board members, 10 years ago or whenever, we were a couple years in, and we were shortening routes, and that I didn't feel very good about that either. So I feel strongly that transportation, we should need to continue it.
When is the the report, how long is that going to be till we get something on that? Or is there a deadline to that, or do we not know?
We're anticipating we'll have that for the April 2nd board meeting.
Okay. Obviously, I think we need to certainly let our bus ridership know that our current services are ending as of June 30th. We all know that. And then, I guess the other thing I'll be interested in, Stubbs, if you can look at basically ballpark numbers later that, okay, we're not going to have to tinker with our assumptions and we can provide this in the transportation area. We're going to have to do modifications to provide this. So kind of I foresee this issue becoming a very big one for our district, and just because of the fact that we are for those of you that don't know, we're a spider district. So we've got a center body, and we go way out and far away, and we come back and to provide that service. So I am just curious for the numbers. What, you know, we went from 380, and now we went to 5 something this year. Now, of course, we're hiring Michael's. We're paying for a contract that Michael's drivers are driving because the Unified can't get drivers for them. So to me, I mean, I wonder if there's an option. I hope there's a possible option for an in-house. But at the same time, I think we have to look at that and say, wow, okay, well, if Napa Unified can't get drivers throughout the valley and they're having to rely on Michael's, then that is a contracted level of which our next financial concern would be. So I guess that's what I would be curious is looking at our current assumptions and providing a balanced budget. Where do you think, what are our options? What things in the future what are the challenges the board's going to have to do to maintain that service level for our students? And I would, over a couple years, to kind of get an idea as to it certainly seems to me that this could be a very, very expensive proposition compared to what we're currently paying. And so I just would like to have that information as to what things that we might have to put off that we're currently doing to make that balance there, because I think the board will have some very difficult decisions as to whether we're comfortable having a budget in the red or making programmatic choices to make the transportation possible. So I think it's just something we have to talk about, and we need to let everybody know that we are talking about this, but yet we aren't really talking about it because we don't have anything from the consultant yet. And I think that's absolutely the number one game plan, is to find out what the consultant feels and where we can kind of go with that. So as much as we talk about the high in the clouds, there really isn't anything to discuss now. It's just kind of, for me, I would just love to see what do we think we could absorb into our current year or into our future years in transportation to be able to continue to do the services we're currently doing.
Ms. Stubbs, could you please describe the Blackboard message that went home to parents of bus riders and what will continue to occur over the next few months?
A message went home today, and we also have updated our district web page to let them know that that the board was discussing it this evening, and that the board will be discussing it on March 12th and April 2nd as well. And then what I plan to do now that we've had this first meeting is plan out a series of updates using Blackboard, and then also add some language to our message on the transportation page so that they understand a little bit more clearly the fact that we're Napa Unified is discontinuing providing us with services, and just providing them with some more information.
Andy, can I ask one follow-up question? When the study comes back to us, will it also include, either from you or the district in general, a discussion and outlines if we were to move something in-house after school versus transporting kids to the boys and girls? I know there was one of the bullet points is to talk about doing something in-house after school versus busing the kids over to the Boys and Girls Club. We had talked about that before. So I'm just wondering, at this stage, would that even come up for discussion, or we're going to still just stay with the study on the next step?
I don't believe there was a bullet about that specifically. I think the bullet just referenced that we do
Okay.
Would we potentially only transport special ed and then students from the primary school to the elementary school? That said, we're always evaluating our instructional programs, and
Okay.
so would probably have some conversations about that with site administration and Boys and Girls Club administration.
Okay,
and so forth.
thanks.
I also had a question. Is it that notice only going to go on the Blackboard, or will there be something like provided at the schools, maybe like in the bulletin? So just in case parents don't check the the actual Blackboard?
I think that would be a good idea. We'll develop a broader communication plan really quickly here, and so I think providing the principals with something to put in their newsletters as well would be a good plan.
And remember that the Blackboard was a phone call and also an email.
So because I am on the list of bus riders, I did get the call today, just to let everyone know. And maybe we can be hopeful that there are some innovative solutions. There's a lot of new opportunities out there in the form of other forms of transportation that we can be creative, and hopefully the study will present some of those solutions to the board within their final findings.
That was something that I was thinking as well, is that hopefully the analysis will include ways that if we wish to continue, how it would look.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anything else? So on to future agenda items. We have the March 12th agenda, if everyone would like to read that. Do the trustees have any subjects for future agenda items? Thank you. So as we go on to item 16A, adjournment, is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.